Well, hello and welcome to Masters Sunday. A little bit different this year. You're joining us here at the new Leadbetter University platform, which is our way of communicating and sharing coaching and educational content with golfers all over the world. We don't have to be in person anymore, so we're doing this webinar as an exclusive opportunity for all of you to listen in and have a special hour here with two of the greats of the game. So they don't need a lot of introduction. We have the greatest golf coach that we've ever known, and has had 4 green jackets that are kind of in his wardrobe. So we can certainly hear a bit more about David's his champions that he's taught, and many more that have won Masters victories. And of course, the legendary Mr. Gary Player, who holds the record for 52 starts at Augusta National, and is truly an icon and a wonderful statesman for the sport. So the way that this will work, David and Gary will discuss their memories and share a few stories about their time at Augusta National. There's a lot of stories between them, so we'll try and get them to squeeze them within our hour that we've got. And then as audience members, you're able to ask questions. So if you'd like to submit a question, there's a text box on the right side. I'll be reading through those questions, and then towards the end of this session, I'll put some of those questions to David and Gary. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to you, David. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Well, Gary, it's a great pleasure to have you on this webinar, and to be actually thought of as a great. For me, that's not the case. You are the great. I mean, because when we look at what you've done in your career, it's absolutely incredible. I just wish the circumstances that we're meeting right now were very different. So our thoughts and prayers are with people who are ill with this coronavirus, people who've lost family and friends. I mean, it really is a devastating illness, and we know we were talking about it prior to the show. There have been other types of pandemics and illnesses throughout history, but this seems to be somewhat different. And the fact that it's happened so quickly. I mean, imagine a few weeks ago, we'd never even have thought that we're going to be in this situation. So our thoughts and prayers with everybody, and hopefully today we're obviously looking at golfers who are housebound in all probability, and maybe we can bring a little bit of joy and happiness to them.
Absolutely well said, David. I endorse everything you said, except, you don't have to be great at one particular thing to be known as great, if there is such a thing. When we die, we all go through the same tunnel into heaven. You are a great. I mean, what you've done for teaching around the world, not only in America, but you had the same kind of thought I had. I wanted to try and go around the world and accumulate the best world record, not just the best record in America or just in majors. So you've done that, and you've done it so well, and that's why you are, in my eyes, you are a great.
Well, thank you. Very, very kind. Coming from you, who I've idolized since I was a little boy. I remember when you came out to Rhodesia, and I followed you very, very closely. I remember you playing an exhibition with Billy Casper and Sir Bob Charles. I remember that distinctly. And I know you kicked their butts. And that, I think, even as great a putter as Sir Bob Charles is or was, I think the grain actually got him. And so, you've obviously grown up on those greens over there when you've got a break of about 10 degrees on the green and the ball actually goes uphill, then it's a little tricky to read.
You're being very generous in calling them greens.
Yeah, Gary. So here we are. We're at Masters Sunday, and probably the leaders will be about teeing off right now. So, I mean, it really is incredible. And first of all, let's talk about Tiger's comeback, which was amazing. I know you've spoken a lot about it, the fact that he is a person who really came back from the dead, so to speak, in terms of golf terminology. And so the fact that he won last year was a pretty amazing feat, wasn't it?
It certainly was. And, you know, I said, which I don't believe a lot of other people said it, and then all of a sudden they took credit. But I said I didn't think Tiger would win another golf tournament, never another major. And he comes along and he does both so well. And I take my hat off to him. It's only a man of Tiger Woods' determination and realizing the importance of the body for it to last. If you don't have a good body, you can't last. And Tiger came back, and in my mind, the two greatest comebacks golf has ever had, without a question, is Tiger and also Ben Hogan when he had that crash and his body was annihilated and in his prime. Think about this. In Ben Hogan's prime, who was still the greatest striker and most beautiful golf swing I ever saw in my life, he won 9 majors and went to war for 5 years in his prime, and then had this accident. So for basically 30 majors and his prime, he never played in one. So think about that. I can't tell you how I admire what Tiger Woods did. And there again, you and I are talking about, prior to this interview, the importance of the mind. And I think there's too much emphasis put on distance, length off the tee. Length off the tee is not what wins golf tournaments. What actually wins golf tournaments is the man that has this superb mind. It's called it. You can't define it. Everybody tries to define it, but you can't. And the other thing is great putting. When you think, it's a very interesting analogy. You have a 1-inch putt and it costs the same as a 360-yard drive. That's food for thought. So if you look at the superstars, and in my opinion, and I keep saying this, they ask me, what is a superstar? I say a man who won 6 majors. And you get all kinds of arguments and contradiction. That's just my opinion. Superstar is used too lightly. And honest to goodness, when I look at Tiger and I look at Jack, the two names that really come to mind, they had such different minds and they were both great putters. That you've got to have. But the thing that Tiger did that enabled him to come back, that he kept his body strong in spite of back operations, numerous knee operations, he kept his body going. And I, of course, fitness, if I may boast, Frank Stranahan, and I started fitness in golf. And Tiger has continued it in the vein that has made me feel very, very proud. And by doing those exercises, he has enabled himself to go on. And let me tell you something, he could go on a lot longer than I thought. I was amazed, I was impressed, and very happy for him, because when he wins, he moves the needle. Golf for all of us around the world, and golf always needs help like any other sport.
Well, Gary, you don't only talk the talk, you walk the walk. You're 84 years young, and you're sharp as a tack. How do you've always had this zest for life and loving people and traveling around the world. How do you keep yourself going? I mean, is it just something that was instilled into you as a youngster, or is it something you practice every day? I mean, it really is amazing, because I mean, you literally are a living legend as far as keeping yourself healthy, aging gracefully. As I said, when we were talking about before the show, you may be 84 years old, but biologically, I think you're probably about 24. So,
well, that's a nice compliment.
how do you keep things going?
The nicest thing you can say to me today is,
we've lost contact a little bit.
I continue having love in my heart. And that is God in your heart. And by having love in your heart, it's stronger than any weapon in the world. And love opens the doors and makes people feel good and makes them feel happy. And this is what I was denied. I was denied several things as a young man growing up in South Africa, and you can appreciate this. My mother died at 9, my brother's at war, fighting the Americans and the British, and my brother-in-law gets killed in the war. And here I'm living, and my father's working on a gold mine, 8,000 feet down. My sister's at boarding school, and without being repetitive, I come home and it's living hell, and I lie in bed, crying, wishing I was dead. And the one thing that I lacked the motherly love that was so important, or parental love that is so important in one's life growing up. And so I think I was denied that, and we were denied freedom, David, as you know. And people don't understand what it was like living under apartheid. We were scared. We were scared. Sometimes I should have said things that I didn't. And I wanted to be a world champion golfer, and I didn't want to be put in jail, and I was scared to say certain things. People were just put away, never saw again, 90 days in jail, prohibited from getting a visa. It was a terrible time. So we were brought up in very difficult times, to say the least, in South Africa. But the greatest gift bestowed upon any human being is suffering. A lot of people always say it's 100% what happens to me in my life, and how unlucky. I heard this in mature all my life, how unlucky I am. It's actually 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. So it comes back to me time and time again that the mind, you've got to have a special mind to become a superstar. You've got to have a special mind. I can't take credit for it. It's something that I inherited. It was a gift that was bestowed upon me, whichever way you want to accept it. But that suffering enabled me to fulfill what I wanted to do. And that when I die one day, I want on my epitaph, I don't want to be classified as one of the great golfers all time. I would really like to say a man who was concerned about human rights and freedom. And when you and I come from Rhodesia and me from South Africa, at a time we were denied the freedom that we were entitled to be. Zimbabwe, as it is now, had more freedom than South Africa in those old days, but we wouldn't say it oozed with freedom. And when you denied that, you crave for it. And so today, when I see young people in universities in America talking about socialism, and in some cases reading about Marxism, I want to turn in my grave, because this country, and you and I can give an opinion on this better than Americans can, because we've experienced different types of lives. And you come here and you have this freedom, which is dying gradually. It's dying a little bit. And then you see this wonderful human rights that people are concerned about and do something about. We just realize how lucky we are, you and I both. You are a citizen here now. You realize how lucky you are to be a citizen, and how much I've got to be grateful for coming to this phenomenal country, the best country in the world. If we go a step further and go into a completely different subject, education, which is vitally important in our lives. If you look at the students that come from Africa, from India, from China, from all over the world, Russia, that come to the Harvards, the Stanfords, and the Princetons, and the universities in this country, what they get out of it. This country has been the Samaritan. It's severely criticized on a lot of occasions. But you see what they have done for us in all different walks of life. The first plane to arrive at the tsunami in Indonesia was an American plane with water, blankets, and food. Look what they did to get freedom in France, in Normandy. If you look at what happened in Hawaii, that was so terrible in 1941. I mean, if you look at the soldiers that died and fought for this freedom, it's not a gift, it's not luck. Luck is the residue of design. And I only pray that the young people of this country, who are wonderful people and are able to have the education, will realize how freedom took place.
So, Gary, your great friend Nelson Mandela, what sort of golfer would he have been with his mind and what he suffered in his life?
I believe he would have been a very good golfer, because, we like to refer to him as our father, because he brought him the freedom and went to jail for 20 years. And he came out and he had no bitterness and no hatred. Extraordinary. And he was a very good boxer. And he could move very fast. And if you got speed, you can play golf well. I think he would have done well at anything. But thank goodness he came along and changed the country to a large degree. Unfortunately, in South Africa today, they've not continued with his entire wishes. There are people today that even criticize him, which is a tragedy. If we just stick to his principles, we'll have a great future in our country and a place in the sun for everybody, which for me is so important, because I love our people in South Africa. I'm proud to have actually represented South Africa for 70 years. I've traveled more than any South African ever. met more people. I've been on television live more than any South African. And now I've just got this greatest honor bestowed upon a South African ever by the American government. The Medal of Freedom is the greatest honor bestowed upon anybody in the world. And so this is something that I'm so proud to receive, not through my golfing prowess, but along the lines that I've tried to speak to you about and try my best to do.
Okay, so let's get a little into golf now. All right, you have 163 wins around the world. You've won the Masters 3 times, 1961, 74, and 78. Out of those 3 Masters, which would be, you think, the most important one for you? Obviously, beating Arnold Palmer in 1961 when he was the king, maybe from my perspective, but obviously winning any of the Masters, I'm sure was fantastic and an amazing achievement for you. And having, was it 1978 when you came back from 7 shots behind? I think it was that 74 or 78? One of the
78.
78, that's right. And so, which Masters is your favorite?
As you know, having attended it on many occasions, just to play that tournament is an honor. To walk through Magnolia Drive, to meet President Eisenhower, Bobby Jones, the most well-spoken of all athletes. His dress code was immaculate, and he was a lawyer and had a swing. And you and I, if you and I look and break down his swing, it might be the best golf swing that ever lived, because he does exactly what you and I like in a golf swing. So, and I was very naive about that until Jack Nicklaus told me, he said, look at Bobby Jones' swing. So I break down and say which one was the most important, because I'd already won the Open Championship in England and wanted to be the first modern day player to win the Grand Slam. And I'd already won the Open. Now I've got to try and get Augusta in, and I win the Masters. Now I've got 2 legs in. So that's very, very important for a start. But then I come along in 1978 and I'm 7 behind Tom Watson and Hubert Green. And I come back in 30 and I rimmed the cup. Actually, I touched the cup 3 times. Thank goodness they all didn't go in. I would have shot 27 and never been invited back. But the thing is that I shot 64 with the bogey, and you win that. And if you watch, which they've just had on television this week, 1978, and one of the commentators said it's one of the 5 great rounds of Augusta ever. What a thrill that was for me. There were 4 of us tied. Hubert Green, Tom Watson, Rod Funthus, and myself, with 4 holes to go. And I hold that putt on 18, which made the difference of winning and losing. And the lovely story about that is my African-American caddy. When I arrived, he says, hey, Gary, man, he says, listen, I need a roof on my house. He says, I've got a big family. We got to win this. I said, we're going to win, and we're going to get you a roof on your house, which was really, really nice. And you saw him when I hold that putt. He jumped 5 feet in the air, man.
That was your famous caddy Rabbit, right?
Well, with that, on that account, I had this famous caddy Rabbit, but this was Eddie McCoy. You know,
Eddie, right.
That caddy's most.
Right. So, Gary, out of all your great attributes as a player, we're talking about as a player, not as a person, as a player, what do you think defines the way that you've been able to compete over the years? What is the greatest attribute that you have? I mean, we know that you're probably the world's finest bunker player ever. You've got one of the strongest minds. You're one of the fittest athletes that have played golf in any event. What is it? Everything combined? Is it just one aspect? What would you say is your greatest attribute?
I think being a champion is like a puzzle. It comprises of different parts: determination, never giving up, never feeling sorry for yourself, having a prayer not to win, but to make you realize how lucky you are and how grateful you should be, hard work. And Winston Churchill, my all-time hero, had a command of the English language which was above one's, what could I say, intelligence, to even have the intelligence to realize how good he was. And he used a term, David, which I've just learned, and my wife and I have read Winston Churchill's series, and he used a word called fixity of purpose. What I've just heard of that the other day, fixity of purpose, which means literally that you never give up, that you keep trying and you keep going at it with a passion. And Winston Churchill said something that I tell, because I have numerous young guys coming up to me and asking, what are you going to do to be a champion? And I said, well, one of the things is, and listen to this carefully, Winston Churchill said, the height that great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, that while their opponents were sleeping, he was toiling upward in the night. And David, I did that so many times in my life. I went out to dinner, came back and went to the manager of the hotel. Can I use the gym? No, sorry, it's locked up. Almost going on my hands and knees, please let me use the gym. I promise I'll bring the key back. Anything is missing, I'll pay for it. I traveled around the world on a plane with no jets, with families, 6 children. Not easy to do, traveling around the world to all these different countries with time changes, wanting to win and beat these guys in their home countries. I don't know, I come back to it, it's a gift, but it's a way you apply yourself. And I think the big thing is to never feel sorry for yourself. There are so many things that go into a puzzle that come out like a pudding. It's all one little thing combined, and it's hard to break it down and to be so focused. I mean, sometimes my family spoke to me on the golf course. I didn't even know they were there, David. I didn't even hear them. So, I mean, it's a matter of really applying. It's like almost a self-hypnosis. And my goodness me, did Tiger do that well? And did Nicholas do that well? I never saw any other athletes do that as well as they did. And that to me is one of the secrets. But it's hard work. It's suffering. And you know, you can say to somebody can say, well, how does a golf pro suffer when he makes these millions of dollars? Well, we didn't. I was leading money do you know when we started the tour, the American tour, I think the total purse might have been $250,000. And today, what is it, over 300 million? When I was leading money winner, I won 64,000 for 29 tournaments and a stroke average of 69. And I beat Arnold Palmer in that. And I'll tell you something that nobody's ever heard. Arnold and I were battling it out. And I was in Australia. And Arnold and Doug Sanders were playing in Louisiana. And if Arnold beat Doug Sanders, I had to get off them. I flew all the way to Los Angeles instead of directly home to South Africa. I'm going to go home direct. I went to LA, made a phone call, put the money in the machine. If Arnold Palmer beat Doug Sanders, I would have gone and played in the next tournament. If Doug Sanders beat Arnold Palmer, I was leading money winner. And I said, what did Doug Sanders shoot? They said 65 and won the tournament. I got on the plane, went back to New York and back to South Africa. So I went round the world to see if I was leading money winner and a 10-cent call. Now, can you imagine guys doing that today? They'll just say, well, we've got so much money next year, we'll just make up more next year. I mean, it's hard to explain to people that one particular player got a $3 million offer to go overseas this year. He turned it down. They offered him $4 million, and he turned that down. I said, me, I'd get on a rowing boat and row over.
Gary, it's well known your love for horses, and it's ironic that your first win in America, 1958, was the Kentucky Derby Open. Did that sort of spur you on from a horse standpoint? I mean, or how did you get your love for horses, racing horses?
I learned that at school. When my mother died, I was very lonely, as I said to you, and a friend of mine invited me out. You know, South Africa had the best high schools in the world. And I went to a school called King Edward VII, and he invited me out to his farm in Johannesburg every weekend, which I was so, so grateful for. And we cleaned horses and rode horses. And the outside of a horse is so good for the inside of a man. And I don't know what I love more, horses or golf. It's a tie. But it certainly helped me to have longevity. I think one of the important things in golf, if you want to be known as a superstar, you've got to have longevity. Longevity is a terribly important thing when judging golfers. I know they don't do that much, the people that judge here, but anyway, charisma comes into it, all kinds of things come into it, instead of longevity in the record book, but be that as it may. So the horse business has been very exciting for me. Even sitting here now, I have a gym in my daughter's house. Our neighbor next door has a beautiful simulator, a forest opposite us here. But I spend at least 1 day a week studying the genetics of my horses. And I can spend 1 hour, 2 hours on just one female, deciding who I'm going to use as a stallion to breed her to try and get a champion offspring. And it's like golf. You know a hell of a lot about nothing. And the other thing is, David, which you would appreciate more than anybody, I don't know of any subject in the world where 1 million words have been written about something that lasts 1 second.
Very true, very true. So, well, Gary, your next, I think your next big phase is breeding golfers, so you can suggest to parents how they can actually breed golfers in the future. Gary, what do you think? What do you think of the?
You know, I'm sorry to interrupt, because talking about horses, I went to my friend Bill Young's farm in Kentucky, and I've always loved Kentucky with those white fences and horses. And he had this horse called Stormcat, and he charged $500,000 to cover a mare. So you brought your mare there, you got her covered, and you paid $500,000. I said, wow, if there is anything such as reincarnation, I want to come back as a stallion like this, baby.
Gary, give me a brief synopsis what you think the state of the game today is. I mean, professional golf, I mean, when you think in terms of the money these guys are playing for, which probably starts with Arnold Palmer, the way he brought golf to millions of golfers out there through TV, and then certainly Tiger in the last decade or so. What do you think the state of the game is right now, and how do you see the future?
I was watching Arnold Palmer's life story yesterday on the Golf Channel, and I got very choked. He did so much for the game, and Arnold, Jack, and I were such great friends, and Jack is still my best friend today. And it was very, very sad, and to see how, and particularly with Arnold, the sad moment when we went on the tee to hit off, Jack Nicklaus and I, to open Augusta, and there was his chair with his jacket on, and Jack and I both started to cry. I mean, that was very, very sad. But the state of the game is very good professionally. And these young pros, they do very, very well. They raise a lot of money for charity, which I admire. So that's great to see that. I'd like to see them attend more dinners at some of the sponsors' events. We had a tournament at Sun City this year. It was the biggest tournament in the world, first prize. In December, it was surpassed in January in Dubai, but up until January this year, South Africa's tournament was the biggest in the world. And we had the big dinner for all the sponsors and the players that played in the Pro-Am, and something like 14 guys out of 73 went to the dinner. And that just hurt me a little bit. And then we had a cookout the next night for all the sponsors, and I think they had about 9 guys go. And I think that they've got to realize, without the sponsors and the public, they won't have any money to play for. But I think they behave very well. I think the game is very, very healthy at the moment. They're very blessed to have this kind of prize money. I mean, it's guys like Bobby Jones and Ben Hogan and Sam Snead and people that played in that era, and then we came along, all helped them to get this kind of money that they're playing for today. And now they have a debt incurred, and they've got to continue to promote the game and do what they can in every aspect that is possible. And I think overall they're doing a great job. It worries me to see what's happening with amateur golf. There's not enough. They haven't found the answer that we really need to get more young people playing golf. And particularly today, cycling is so important, and other sports are important that are not time consuming. So we've got to come up with good ideas worldwide. And one of the things that I would like to see take place is that all PGAs in the world take 2 players from each state, whichever country you live in, and send them to schools. They have to every year visit 2 schools. Is that asking a lot? For 2 pros to visit 2 schools a year and go and hit some balls on their football field? You know, once you see that ball being hit, and once you touch your club and you hit it, you're hooked. And really, What sport can you compare to golf? Let's be honest. And I love all sports. But you take football, American football. If you play for the NFL for 4 years, you've done very well. I mean, you get freaks like Tom Brady and people like that. But generally speaking, if you play for 4 years and you can walk, you're lucky. Rugby, the same thing. Cricket, you finished when you're 32, 33. Tennis, you're gone when you're basically 32, unless you're a freak like Federer or Nadal or Djokovic. But look at other sports, you're gone. And golf is the passport to the world. The rich people of the world, lucky enough, play golf. And you play with them. They're in your arena and they donate fortunes to charity. And they keep doing wonderful things for the sport. And look at the charity that is derived from golf. Over 3 billion the PGA has collected for charities, more than any other sport in the world by a long way. And what other sport can you play like I'm doing now at 84, on a normal golf course, average 72, and beat your age over 2,000 times in a row? You can't do that in other sports.
Well, you're cheating there, Gary, because the older you get, the easier it is for you.
Well, I'll give you next year and see if that applies.
Now, we've actually started this program, the Leadbetter Kids program, where we're actually training parents to actually train their kids certainly during this period of time. So we're trying to get more kids into the game from the ages of 4. And it's really interesting how, I mean, I think the question I always, or the statement that's always said to me on a regular basis, I wish I'd started younger. Well, now there's an opportunity out there.
Absolutely, David. You're doing a great job with that, and the pros work hard at that. But we've got to keep coming up with ideas because sports are very competitive today, and golf is still a little bit too expensive. I think there are hundreds of thousands of golfers in the country and around the world that have got clubs lying in their houses not doing anything. They should be able to send them through to different connections and give children clubs to start with. Can you imagine the millions of pairs of shoes that are lying around? Send them out. I wouldn't be proud to use secondhand shoes. Better than walking bare feet, man.
That's true. So, Gary, I know you're very, very competitive, still at 84 years young. I mean, what you've obviously missed this year is your long drive contest with Mr. Nicholas. And I have to say this, okay? You have to realize that Jack has not got shorter. You've just got longer. Yes.
What a diplomat. I said to Jack, he says, hell, it burns me up that you outdrive me. I said, Jack, you outdrove me for 40 years. I'm going to the gym and you're not, to the extent. I said, I've got to outdrive you. And I said, I'll make you feel good next year. When we drive off, which is supposed to take place this week, when I hit mine past you, it's going to suck yours on another 10 yards longer, you'll feel good.
Gary, I know we got a few questions out, but I want a final thing here. From our standpoint, it's like, look, you played in, I don't know, thousands of pro-ams. Give the amateurs out there something that they could bite their teeth into and maybe practice at home during this period of time that could really help their game.
Well, I would say the worst thing they have is weight transference and bad balance. They have shocking balance. They're all over the place. Looks a little bit like a Zulu war dance sometimes. You don't know where they're standing and they fall back. I would say that they've got to really learn. They should first of all go to you to learn where to put the club on the backswing and then learn to finish their shot with decent balance. I love the way Patrick Harrington did that the other day. He did it on the show and he said, go into the finish. Go into the finish. Because a lot of people go to here and they stop and then they give the false finish. Or they finish over here, they finish over there. Good position at the top of the nice turn on the backswing, and then finish the shot with good balance. Mind you, it's the first 20 years that are the toughest.
I know that's something people can practice at home. Just make 50 swings a day, do 5 sets of 10, and just swing and hold your finish. And the old thing is hit the ball with your practice swing, right?
I love that, but how many people really worry about health? I mean, America, this phenomenal country, they will now have no healthcare system one day because the people are so obese, and which is a tragedy. And you're not going to be able to afford it with cancer, diabetes, and heart problems. It's not going to be affordable. So we've got to incentivize. And Lee Kuan Yew, who is one of the greatest leaders the world ever had, he said in Singapore, he said, you've got to incentivize people. There should be a program, insurance program that pay you out and help you pay for some kind of medicine for the amount of exercise and your diet and the way you look after yourself. And they can do blood tests, etc., and give you a test fitness-wise if you're doing well or not, or you're slow, you're not continuing to do well. So I don't know. I think we got it the wrong way around. They even took exercise out of schools. To me, that is so sad to see that, because you've got to be in shape. And if you go to universities today, let's face it, 90% of kids at university today smoke, drink, or on weed of some kind. Now, that to me is very, very sad, because when you're young, you think you know everything, and you don't know, you know very little. But I do know one thing, without a question, the most important thing in your life is your health. Because if you don't have health, and I've had many people in my family die around me and to see what it looks like, and I've seen a lot of death in my life, having traveled more miles than any human being ever. I've seen some terrible things. If you are healthy, you're wealthy. If you're healthy, you can work hard and you can do well in life, irrespective whether you have a great education or not. So your health, how do you get this through to people? You can't get people to eat less. But one of the great secrets to living a long time is the less you eat, the longer you live. And you've got to exercise, and you've got to laugh, and you've got to have a pet of some kind. A pet actually helps you to live longer. You've got to have a great wife, if you can find one, and you can find a good husband. Today, so many people are married and divorced, but you've still got to try and find a good wife and a good husband and a good family and a good faith. There are a lot of things that make you live a long time and play well a lot longer. Arnold, Jack, and myself.
Golf is such a great game. It's one of the few sports you can play.
What's happening there, David?
No, little technical problem there, Gary. That's okay.
No. Golf is the passport to the world. It really is, and you can play it forever. And the friends you make is just unbelievable, and it's played everywhere in the world. And when you go on a golf course, you are with nature. Tennis court, almost everyone is the same in big cities, etc., etc. But golf courses are marvelous, and they help fight pollution. And golf gives jobs. Think what golf does for America. The millions and millions of people that tour America or tour Scotland or Ireland, the jobs with caddies, the equipment. I mean, you can go on and on and on. What it does for tourism is unbelievable, as I say. Golf, you can never put a value on playing golf, and we've got to get young people to play. And contrary to what people say, you get somebody who says golf is not a fitness game. Get him take a driver and go get 100 drivers, David, as you know. We'll see how fit he is.
Right. Well, true words spoken, Gary, because I think the proof of the pudding is the fact you've kept your great wife, Vivian, around longer than that famous putter of yours. So there we go.
63 years I've been married. I've been going out with her for 70. I met her when I was 14. What a chick.
Wow. Oh, we have Ben back on the screen, so we have a few questions, I assume.
We do. As you're reminiscing there, Gary, we'll put this first question. So this has come from Lenny Steinberg, asks if you could compare your first and your last round of Augusta National.
Well, they were both exciting. Can you imagine this young man arriving at Augusta in 1957 and arriving there and seeing President Eisenhower and Bobby Jones and this golf course? I mean, it just was mind-boggling, and it still is mind-boggling. Even watching it on television today, my grandson said to me, one of my grandchildren said, "What a place that is, isn't it?" I mean, when you look at the two contrasts, the two great golf tournaments, the Masters and the British Open or the Open, the history that's been attached to that is quite remarkable. And then you've got the US Open, and the USGA do a great job, and the PGA do a great job. So we got at the helm, we have wonderful leaders, but they got to start realizing that change is the price of survival. And don't succumb to people who know that you've got to change the ball and make it for professional golf shorter. The manufacturers, some of them don't want to do it. They'll still sell the same amount of balls because they advertise better than others. What sells a golf ball more, David? There's no one ball that's better than the other. What sells it is how you market it. You might have a better feel, but none of the balls go further. They have better feels, the paint might be better, but they're not allowed to go further. So don't fall for that, folks, about golf balls going a lot further. They're not allowed to do it. So golf to me is just this fascinating game. It keeps you occupied forever. I went to have a physical the other day, and this lady, I was having a massage. She said, you know, I massaged the guy that was 96 before he died, and he couldn't wait to play golf the next day. And he was convinced it kept him alive. And I know that golf has kept me alive. Arnold loved to play golf every day. Trevino loved to play golf every day. Nicholas didn't like to play golf every day. I like to play golf every day. But I know that golf definitely adds years to your life. If you three-putt a lot, it'll take away a few years.
What was the feeling, Gary, when you walked off the 18th there with your final Masters? Did you know that you wouldn't play the following year? Had you already decided?
Yes, I did decide. That's why you saw me go on my hands and knees on the edge of the green when I arrived there, saying thank you, thank you, thank you for the courtesy and everything and the honors that have been bestowed upon me. It was time to say thank you with the whole world watching. I don't think the word thank you is used sufficiently.
Do you think anyone will get close to 52?
Oh, yes, I could have gone on. I was fit enough and playing well enough to go on. When you've won the tournament 3 times and you're second 3 times in the top 10 and the most cuts and the most number of times, do you want to be around there just hanging around? I've always worried about sportsmen that hung around too long. And so we sat down, my son Mark and I sat down and we decided, and the rest of my family, this is the time to stop playing now. But I still played very well after that. But there comes a time, and so records always made to be broken. There's only one record that's never really been broken, and I shot in I think it was 1965, right about then. I broke the Australian Open record. I shot 262s in the same tournament with Jack playing. And the record's been 264 for over 50, 60 years. With all the modern day equipment, they've never broken it.
That's amazing, isn't it? How do you think the course needs to change? Maybe this is to both of you. Is Augusta able to defend itself against these bombers, or obviously it's very different than when you played it, Gary? What's your take on that?
Well, David and I discussed this at length somewhere. The guys that come along in 30, 40 years' time, they're going to stand on the first green. Look, they're guys that can do it right now. They can stand on the first tee in Augusta. It's 454 yards long. They can drive it on the green right now. And this business of muscle bound, I listen to people on the Golf Channel talking about golf muscle bound people. There's no such thing as muscle bound. You're either muscle bound without exercises or after exercise. Watch these weightlifters. They come out like Tarzan and they swing the club below parallel. Now, if you're muscle bound, you can't get the club below parallel. And Tiger and Rory and and Dustin and Koepka have proved this. Koepka does all this bench pressing before he plays. So it's changed the whole idea, which we try to tell people, but they wouldn't take any notice. So I don't think you've got to change the golf course. I don't think they ever needed to change the golf course. I think it was a waste of money and could have been donated for golf and junior programs and things that were of importance. All they had to do was cut the ball back. That's all they had to do. And that's a simple, uncostly thing to do and logic to do. So that's my opinion. They've got to cut the ball back, because if they don't, the same thing's going to happen in the future. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go when you have guys hitting the ball 454 yards? And with the incentive of winning $1 million every week, let me tell you, you got people in China and Africa and all around the globe. Boy, those guys are practicing way harder than Americans or South Africans or Australians or British people, because they have nothing and they can see this possibility. People are going to build their bodies into Tarzan.
That's a very good segue, David. There's a question here that's come in for you asking which skills in golf are the most important to teach, physical or mental? That came in from Kevin Godu. What's your take on that, David?
Well, I don't think you can really split the two, to be honest. I mean, I think once you have some physical skills, the mental side plays a huge role. If you look at all the players on tour now, or on the tours around the world, most of them have got pretty good technique, and it's very difficult to decide if you walk down the practice tee, well, this person's got it, this person hasn't got it. So in the end, I think you get to a point where the mental side plays a bigger role. But I think to get to that point, I mean, you think in terms, I think young players are very lucky these days. They have access to a lot of material, a lot of information where they can get their technique to a point where they can then progress. I mean, if you look at Gary, I mean, Gary was always tinkering with his technique, and really sort of, as Hogan used to say, he dug it out of the dirt. I mean, there really weren't that many coaches or teachers. I mean, Gary, I'm sure you did a lot of work on the practice tee with other players, talking about this, that, the other. I mean, there were some great swings at the club, people like George Knudsen and Tony Lima, etc., and Tom Weisskopf, for instance, who I believe that you think was probably one of the greatest ball strikers out there, but didn't have it between the ears. So it's very interesting. I say it's very difficult to divide that line, because you can look at a swing and say, well, how does that work? But yet somehow they get the ball in the hole and it's very repetitive. Somebody like a Jim Furyk, for instance, you wouldn't necessarily teach that, but yet he's got a tremendous, a lot of great assets to his swing that, and I know Gary likes a lot of what he does just through the fact that he gets the club in a position which a lot of players try to do more of this today. I know Gary, that's one of Gary's pet peeves, I would say, and as he rightly says, players who've done that in the past, people like Trevino and Arnold Palmer, didn't have lengthy careers, although they were great players during that certain period of time. So it's interesting. I mean, people use Hogan as a model, and Hogan, one of the things that he did, obviously, to cure his hook was to get that left wrist in a slightly cut position. I mean, at some point it's going to bow, but I think you have got to be seriously strong. If you look at a John Ram or Dustin Johnson or a Koepka, I mean, these players are really powerful. So I think some people are going up the wrong road trying to actually do this on a regular basis, especially amateurs.
Well, there's never been anybody that Trevino's lasted the longest being shut, but he stood so open. I mean, Trevino aimed 100 yards left of the target, so he got away with it. But Arnold Palmer had a very short golf career, which people don't understand, and that's was because he shut. Now, John Rahm, he's got the strongest legs on the tour. In fact, the three guys that do play shut face, Rahm, Dustin Johnson, and who is the other one?
Koepka.
Koepka. They are so strong physically that they can actually hold on to that club. But once the legs go, they're gone. But by that time, they'll have $200 million or more in the bank. So,
right, who cares?
But the thing is, whether you want the money or the bank, I'd rather have less money in the bank and play golf for a long time. But everybody has their own way of doing things. But there's never been a shut-face golfer that has really lasted a long time of note. If you look at most of the superstars that the world's ever known, every one of them have been under the shaft. Every single one of them. There's never been one that hasn't been. So, but I'm always accept that change is the price of survival. And we've never had guys with that strength, although Nicholas had strength. I mean, there were a lot of players that had it, but generally the guys today are going to a gym all the time and building themselves into stronger and stronger and stronger men. But you still got to have it golf. Now, if you look at John Rahm's legs, they like Jack Nicklaus's were in his prime. He's got such strong legs that he can be shut and get away with it, and so can Dustin, and so can Koepka. They can get away with it. But how long can you get away with it? That's the debatable issue. How ambitious are you to do? I don't know. But I like a golf swing where under pressure, you've always got to build a golf swing that works under pressure. And you've got to have the same backswing every time. You can't vary it. And there are ways to give yourself the same backswing, which we won't discuss now. But when they make this move into the ball, they're so strong with their legs that they can actually get away with it right now. I'm always open to suggestions. I'm never emphatic about something because golf has taught you to be humble in your opinion. But there's one golfer playing the tour that today, I won't mention his name. I know if I could spend 1 hour with him, I know I can make him the #1 player in the world for sure. But I'm not going to mention his name because I'm never going to give him the lesson, and he's going to be too proud to ever ask me to do it. But the thing is that you still have to go and work. If you want your swing to last a long time, there are certain things you got to do, David, which you and I agree emphatically on. There's certain fundamentals. Now, John Daly, if you look at his backswing, I was looking at it yesterday. If you look at John Daly's backswing at the top, it's hard to believe a human being can play that well from there. But I'd rather he had what he had than some of the backswings I see today. If you look at Jim Furyk, I love his backs. I love his swing, Jim Furyk, actually. I think he's got a great. This young man, Wolf, I've never met him. What's his first name? Wolf.
Matthew Wolf. Matt Wolf, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of merit in what he does in his swing. There's a lot of good things. So, and really, in the end, I don't think the swing is the thing. It's how you compete. If you really believe you're the best. This is the great thing in my career, being small and being from South Africa and having to travel here under abnormal conditions with 6 kids and living the way on an airplane, no jets. The one thing I always did, I believed I could beat them all. And I proved it. When I played a man like Nicholas in the World Match Play Championship in London, twice, 36 holes, October, long golf courses, 12 newspapers on both occasions unanimously said Nicholas would win. I beat him 6-4, 6-5. And Jack is my best friend. And Jack always said to me, you're the only one who's not scared to play me and doesn't believe you can beat me. Now, Jack was phenomenal, and nobody has more respect for Jack's play and French.
Tell us briefly, Gary, the story when you were 7 down to Tony Lima at lunch.
Well, that's right. I'm playing Tony Lima. I think he was British Open champion, and I was US Open champion, 1965. And I'm 6 down going to lunch. And we're walking down to the 18th tee, and he puts his hand on my shoulder through that little path to the 18th tee at Wentworth. He says, never mind, Gary. He says, you'll be invited back next year. You know, you are US Open champion. You are the present world match play champion. You'll be invited back. And I said, well, thank you, Tony. In the meantime, I was saying, man, this match ain't over yet. And you know, we went into lunch 6 down, and I never had any lunch. I went to the practice tee. I was hooking the ball a bit. I wish I knew about the swing what I know about now. But anyway, I went and I practiced during lunch. He went in and sat with the press, and the press were all saying, well, what a great effort. You've beaten the world match play champion. And we got on the first tee, and I hooked it into the bush and lost that. So I went 7 down after all the practicing. So the first thing that could come to your mind, gee, he sat in there having lunch with everybody, enjoying it. I went with no lunch and went and practiced. I was penalized. But that's what you've got to understand about golf. It will punish you, and you can't feel sorry for yourself. So it comes back to the mind over and over again. And I was 7 down, and I think I shot 64, 65 and beat him on the 37th hole, which was exciting for me, but sad for him, because he went through customs the next day, and the man said to me, this man didn't know where he was. And then he shortly died after that in an airplane crash in Chicago with his wife, which was very, very sad.
Listen, David, Gary, we have a few minutes left here on this chat. We could probably go on for longer, so we might stretch this out because I've got so many questions that have come in that I probably don't have time to answer them all. I'm gonna put one to you here, then maybe we have a couple more, then we'll try and answer the rest perhaps on Twitter or somewhere else. This, I know, I'm worried because this question could go a long time with both of you. This has come in from Matthew Toth, who says, as fitness and health gurus, give me one thing that I should eat and one thing that I shouldn't eat to stay healthy. You want to go first there, Gary?
Well, first of all, I think we've got to be very careful when it comes to diets and giving an opinion, because everybody's different. You know, one man like Winston Churchill, he had half a bottle of brandy every day and lived to 93. If I had that, I would have been dead already. So you've got to be very careful. I can only tell you the foods that I try not eat. And I can't tell him that he mustn't eat. But I do know one thing. Watch the scale and do not get 1 pound overweight. Weight stops a trade. If you've got 2 horses, which are the greatest athletes in the world, and if you put 10 pounds on 2 horses of equal ability, 10 pounds on one horse, the other horse will beat him every time. And that's equivalent to 1 pound on a human being. When you get older, you should be lighter. because your joints and your knees and your ankles and your heart and your brain, nothing is as strong as when you were a young man. So you've got to get lighter, not heavier, but to the contrary, everybody gets heavier. So the secret, I think, to eating is the less you eat, the longer you live. I don't eat a lot of meat. I don't eat bacon. I don't eat ice cream. I've been a chocoholic all my life, but I went to the doctor the other day. He said, quit. I haven't had a chocolate in 3 weeks. So you've got to have tests to see what you're doing well and what you're doing badly with, but you've got to keep your weight down. And obesity kills more people than all the wars of the world put together.
So true. David, what should a golfer put in their golf bag? Let's answer that.
Well, I think, you know, it's like anything. Everything's in moderation. I mean, it's not that you have to starve yourself of everything. I mean, but if you do it on a regular basis, I think white flour, white sugar are killers, because there's really no positive ingredients in that. And I think the thing is, especially in the Western world, I think people eat way too many carbs. And so I think if you can increase healthy fats and to some extent, you know, keep your protein levels reasonably high and cut down on carbs, I think that's probably the way to go. But as Gary was saying, everybody's different. Some people survive well on carbs, most people don't. So it depends. I mean, look, if you're related to an Eskimo, you might want to eat a lot of whale fat. But the fact of the matter is that I say if you can pretty much watch what you eat, and say, as Gary said, you know, I mean, unfortunately in America, portions are so big. There's so much wastage of food, and I think it's up to us individually to sort of watch what we eat and not just eat because we're hungry. I think you've got to eat because from a nutritional standpoint, you've got to feed your body. You've got to put good fuel in there so you think well, are able to physically be able to do certain things. And there's no question about it. If you want a long, healthy life, as Gary was saying, your health is your only wealth.
I love what David said about the white bread and white flour and sugar. That's so true. You see people have a hamburger. Well, a hamburger is fine. You have a little tomato and onion and garlic on it, healthy. But throw away the white bun, man. I gave my dog a white bun the other day and he died.
Well, we'll stay on the food theme, but Gary, what do you remember what you served for your 3 Masters dinners, and what was it like? What's it like sitting in a Masters dinner?
It's the 2 greatest evenings of the year are when the Open is played at St Andrews, and you have the dinner in that famous old clubhouse with the pomp and ceremony, marvelous. And the other great evening is the dinner at Augusta every year. And it's irrelevant what you order. I remember Sandy Lyle ordering haggis, wee neeps and tatties. Well, if I had that, I don't know how long I'd sit at the table for, but there's still a steak or fish or vegetables, whatever you want. So it doesn't matter what you order. A lot of it is press talk, what you're going to order, and you do order that, but you can still get anything you like.
And what did you put on your menu? Do you remember the menu that you chose?
I try to put on just the normal. I said, order what you like, guys. I'm so happy to win the tournament. I'll pay for it. Just order what you like. Caviar, anything you like. This 1 week I haven't got deep pockets and short arms.
We've got an interesting question in here from Paolo Pustetto, who asks what your most memorable shot that you can remember at Augusta. Perhaps we can ask you, Gary, personally, and then afterwards, David, the most memorable shot you remember watching.
I came in 1978 to the 18th hole, and I looked up at the scoreboard, and I pretty much knew what was going on. And there was Watson, Hubert Green, and Rod Funseth and myself tied. And I looked at that scoreboard, which they do so well, and I said to my caddy, I've got to hold this to win. Straight downhill. At that stage, nobody had ever held a downhill putt to win Augusta. Since then, Mickelson, Tiger, Sandy Lyle, and I suppose a host of others have done it. And I had this 22-foot putt downhill. And I had a putt half that length years back when Casper won to tie, and I misread it. And I remember that. Isn't that amazing? Years back. And it went right in the middle of the hole. And that's the greatest shot, without a question, that I ever played at Augusta. Because that I knew I had to hold to win.
Yeah, I always remember looking back at in the annals of history, Gary, your bunker shot on 18 in 1961 when you beat Arnold, because he had a similar shot which he bladed over the green, if I remember correctly.
He did, and if you realize he played it, David, your memory's great. He played it incorrectly. Arnold was never a very good bunker player because he was very shut-faced, and shut-faced doesn't allow a good bunker player. Now, Arnold was a phenomenal driver and a phenomenal long-iron player, but he got in the bunker, if you look, because we watched it yesterday, and his ball was buried, and he played it with an open face, and he played it with a normal follow-through. He should have kept his face shut, and he should have just chopped down on it, so the ball just popped out of the bunker because it's straight downhill. So, of course, at that stage, you know, everybody chokes, but some people choke less than others. And Arnold wasn't a choker. He was a charger. But that's one time you couldn't charge it, and he went about it. And if you look at it, he went about it absolutely incorrectly, which we all do from time to time.
I hope you mentioned that to him at some stage, you know, after the fact.
Are you crazy? That man's little finger was the exact same size as my index finger. There's Arnold's little finger. Look at that. He's the only man that picked a bar of gold up in South Africa with his hand. You know what you called Arnold? Sir.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest shots I remember seeing was with Sir Nick Fowler. That was 1996 when he hit a 2-iron to the 13th green. I mean, from you know, that lies, you know, Gary, on not an easy lie, that sort of ball above your feet, almost downhill, up a side hill lie, and hit this unbelievable 2-iron when Greg was unfortunately sort of leaking some oil in it. But I mean, there have been so many great shots, and but I'm sure that one there that you must remember fondly, that putt that you hold there.
Oh yes, and I played at Carnoustie in Scotland, and there were 5 of us within one stroke. We played the 14th hole called the Spectacles, and the wind was blowing, and I could see that flag flipping and waving in the breeze, and I took a 3-wood and knocked it, and Nicholas and I were together, and I was only 1 shot ahead of him, and I put it 6 inches from the hole. Boy, oh boy, was that a right time to do that. So, but you see this done all the time by these wonderful golfers, and everybody talks about how lucky they are. It's not. Look at that chip shot Tiger Hole at Augusta on 16. You know, you can go back and look at numerous shots. They're just so good. It's not luck.
Well, I think that saying was attributed to you, right? The more you practice, the luckier you got, right?
And that was a true saying that happened in Texas. That's absolutely true. I was in a bunker, and a man standing in his beautiful cowboy suit, which I love about the Texans. And he had a red man tobacco in his mouth. And I hold the one bunker shot. He said, "You think you can do that again?" So I said, "Well, I don't know about that." And I knocked it in. He says, "Son, if you knock this one in, the third one," he took out $500 new bills, as far as I remember. "If you hold it, I'll give this to you." And I knocked that in. And he said, "What's the luckiest thing?" He spat on the ground, that red man out there, and said, "That's the luckiest thing I've ever seen in my life." And spontaneously, I said, the harder you practice, the luckier you get, because I used to spend a lot of time every morning before work practicing bunker shots, every single morning, even when I got home late after taking my wife out at that stage.
Yeah, well, the rumor has it, Gary, that you would only leave the bunker after you'd hold 5 shots. Is that correct?
Correct. And some mornings I couldn't get there because I had to get back to work in the pro shop. So I couldn't do it. But then I went back in the evening and stayed there as long as I could. That was my motto, to try and do it every day. I obviously didn't do it every day, but most days I did.
And conversely, what was the one shot that you would like to play again, Gary? Is there one that sticks in the mind?
At Augusta.
At Augusta, yeah.
I've got a couple. I've got a couple.
Right, you can have more than one.
In 1962, the biggest disappointment I had in my life in golf, stands alone, was in 1962. I got the chance to be the first man to win Augusta twice in a row. I'm playing with Arnold, and obviously, and I appreciate it, the people were cheering for him. The only people cheering for me was my wife and my dog. But anyway, I got up there, and I hit the ball at 16, about 12 foot from the hole, the most perfect, easy putt. Arnold missed the green to the right. Now think about this, guys. The flag was bottom left. He missed it to the right. Nobody's ever gotten down in 2 from there. And he chipped this ball, and you know how it breaks. And it came down there at 100 miles an hour, and my caddy said, we've won. Because he was going to make 4, and I had a chance of making 2. And it hit the flag at that pace and went in the hole. And I missed my short putt. And that stuck in my mind. Every time I get on that green, I'll walk off there with my tail between my legs, but I'll give Arnold a little wave upstairs and say, well done, my friend. I said to him, and it's a mess the other day, I said, listen, you know, the sun's setting, make sure you got a nice gym there, and also maybe you start working out with the weights and build a Gary Player golf course while you're up there. I'm going to reply back, you've got to be joking, man. It's going to be an Arnold Palmer course.
That's good. Listen, I would love to keep going all day, but we know we have a limit, and we've stretched a little bit here. So, Gary, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure listening to your stories, and there are very few players and statesmen in the sport that make more sense than you. So, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, David. Take care.
Thanks, Gary. Just to finish, a message for the folks out there during this period.
We got to say to them, because they've got to have hope. People have got to have hope, not live in fear, that everything shall pass. I think the President of America is doing a great job, the best he can. It's not an easy job for anybody. There's no one set answer. And we've got to be courageous. And my heart goes out to those, because I've had a lot of death in my family, as I mentioned earlier in the show. My heart goes out to them. God bless you. May everything come right, and the sooner the better. But in conclusion, try and remember how lucky you are to live in this great country. In Africa, where people are in one room together, 5 people, or in China, 5 or 6 people, and around the world, they don't have the comfort to live in while we're experiencing these terrible times. It will come right. Be confident, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Well, Gary, we look forward to seeing you at Augusta, maybe in November, if that comes true. Let's finish with a tip. So this is the only opportunity on Masters Sunday where you can have a second bet, right? So who's your money on for the next green jacket winner? Gary, you go first, then David, what's your thought?
I say Rory McIlroy.
There we go. Be a popular winner.
I'm going to concur with Gary here. I'm going to copy Gary in this regard, because I think Rory has he's got everything that he needs to win at Augusta.
But he's got 6 months more time to practice, doesn't he?
He sure does.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and everybody who joined in, thank you for being part of this webinar. We will do more of these, and keep tuned in to Leadbetter Golf, and we'll announce the next webinar shortly. So thank you very much.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.